Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
How's it going?
Good.
No complaints.
All right. Are we ready to launch in?
Yes.
All right. Well, then I will call the meeting of January 29th of the Shelburne Select Board to order. And we can begin with a review of the minutes of our last meeting. Any comment, Rick?
I have read them and found no discrepancies with my memory.
Great.
So I didn't find anything that needed addressing.
Okay. Terry, anything you caught?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
All right, and I will second, and if there's no discussion, we'll bring to a vote. Rick?
Aye.
Andrew is aye, and the motion carries. Department liaison reports. Rick?
As I had mentioned, the veterans group has completed their budget, which I gave you the numbers at the last meeting and are in these minutes. They go now to a quarterly, so there won't be anything until I think June before they have the next meeting. So nothing from them. Police department, you may recall I gave you some numbers through November of calls total for the two towns, and I got a little better breakdown on that for year end now. So in 2023, there were just shy of 6,200 calls between the two towns. They are broken out separately by town. There were 3,678 calls for Shelburne and 2,535 in Buckland. They cover a gamut of items, and it's broken down to how many and response time, and it's quite a dispatch analysis that they have to keep. But it ranges everything from car versus deer to structure fire to motor vehicle accidents. It's 2 pages of categories, and they stay busy for sure if you break that out, given the size of our now combined department.
Did you get any insight into the reason for that 1,000 call discrepancy between the two towns?
He didn't have a guess to hazard, just making a guess. We're a little bigger than them, are we not?
About the same size, yeah.
Really?
I mean, the one difference I can think of is that we have Highland Village on our side, and I have been told in the past that they generate a lot of calls, but I don't know that they generate 1,000 calls. So
Yeah.
Just curious, you know.
We also have a much larger stretch of route too.
Ah, yes,
Yeah, that's a good point.
that would be a much more likely explainer there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Terry.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Actually, as I look at that for Buckland and then the Shelburne, huge difference in the numbers in motor vehicle and speeding stops and so on.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I think Terry figured it out for me.
Great.
Also,
well, thank you for that data dive there, Rick. That's always helpful as we're launching into this shared police service.
Yeah.
To get a sense of how that's going.
I have them in PDF form. If you'd like them, I'll forward them on.
Great.
The new cruiser is finally getting picked up Thursday. So they're excited about that, and kind of just pulled his hair out and said what a drawn out process it is to get a new cruiser put together. But Thursday's the day. The chief also wanted the board to know and the public to know that he's submitted a grant paperwork for something called the Small Rural and Tribal Body-Worn Camera Program. It's a program of the Bureau of Justice Assistance, the Office of Justice Programs, the U.S. Department of Justice, and Justice and Securities Strategies. It's a federal micro grant program, and he had mentioned before the desire to move forward with some body worn cameras, and we'll see how that one goes. And then he wanted to have me take a moment, the Shelburne Police Department extending their deepest condolences to the family and friends of Bob Manners. And I'd like to read the two sentences he wrote here. Bob was not only a respected select board member, paramedic, fireman, and police officer, but also a cherished friend to many within our department and the wider community. His unwavering commitment, dedication to public service, and passion for making our town a safer and better place have left an indelible mark that will never be forgotten. I thought that was very nice and heartfelt, and we share that, I'm sure. And
Thank
that's
you.
that's all I have.
Great. Terry, do you have anything on the town offices or anything else?
Just that our audit will start the first week of February, so that will keep us busy for a little bit. We're doing a lot of preliminary gathering of data at their request. I'm also seeking proposals for audits in the next 3 years, because this will be the last of the 3 years with the firm that we've been using. So I just want to get some pricing. Sandry Oil will be at Cowell Gym on Thursday this week to do the oil tank replacement. And that's all I have for the moment.
Great.
Super.
Go ahead, Rick.
I just said super.
Oh, sorry. My only update is I did attend the FERCog board meeting last week, and the board did pass the FERCog's budget, which is level funded this year. So they were able to keep the assessments, pretty much where they are. And I think there's some changes in EQV based on tax assessments and things, but the FERCog has been very successful in their grant writing. So that's actually covering the lion's share of their budget these days. And so that was good news. And I have not yet met with Mark, so that is on my list of things to do to get connected to the highway department. So I will check in on that at the next meeting. And that's all I've got. We are not meeting with Mike Edwards, is that right, Terry?
That is correct.
Okay. And do we have anything more on the solar array?
Just waiting for John Walsh to return from vacation so we can schedule a working meeting. I
Okay.
also spoke with Bob Dean, and I have the name of the new chief procurement officer. So once we have a date in mind, I will invite her to the table.
Okay. And who is that?
I should have brought the sticky note with me.
Oh, okay.
Her
Well,
name is very new to me.
that's fine. Just curious. But I'm sure we'll meet her soon.
Yes.
And then moving on to new business, we have the Community Development Block Grant, GEG Constructions contract change order, looking to for a contract extension to wind up that project. Do we have specific language there that they're looking for?
Yes, they do. I have that. In a nutshell,
Oh, there it is. Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
in a nutshell, I believe it's simply the punch list. And apparently the longest delay is due to the damage to the couple of decorative streetlights in the parts supply. So they can't fix it and close the ticket basically until those are done, along with perhaps some other punch list items. But Terry, you may have a better idea.
Yes, they have a few punch list items. They have to.
You lost Terry?
Terry? Oh. She dropped right off the map there.
Yep.
I wonder what happened.
That's new.
Huh.
I'm sure she'll
Well, let's give her a minute there.
Yeah.
And we'll let me just get back to my oh, here she comes. Okay.
Can you
There-
hear me?
There
Yeah.
you are, yeah.
My computer just rebooted, so I will back into that. They need to reinstall signage. They need to reface the handicapped ramp. They need to put new light bulbs in the street lights in the project area, and then have the two that were broken repaired.
What does refacing the ramp mean? Is that the railing or the concrete?
If you look at the concrete that faces Baker Avenue, there's clearly, you can see where the new pour meets the old foundation. And I want them just to face it off so it looks a little nicer, smooth it out.
I see. Okay, great. Rick, do you want to go ahead with a motion there?
Certainly, I would move to approve the change order number 4 to the contract between the town of Shelburne and GEG Construction for Bridge Street Phase 2 improvements, which will extend the project completion date to May 31st of 2024.
And I will second that. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call to a vote. All in favor, Rick?
Aye.
Andrew's aye, and the motion carries. And we have Tom Williams regarding select board representation to the Emergency Management Committee. Any thoughts on that? Is that something you want to do, Rick, or is that something
I'd be
you
happy
prefer?
to.
You'd like to do that?
I would be happy to, unless you wanted to take it on. I checked in their third Thursday of the month, and the timing is fine with me, so I'm happy to do it if you like.
That sounds great. I've used up most of my evenings these so far with other meetings, so
It's easy, this job.
that would be great. And Terry, do we need a motion to appoint there? Or not?
No, he would just serve as a representative until June 30th, and then we'll revisit it again.
Great. All right, you're on, Rick.
Great.
And Terry, while we're on that subject, I was just curious, I saw the emails from Tom about the grant that he's applying for. Have
Yes.
we already given the thumbs up on that?
I believe Bob had given the thumbs up on that. But
Okay, I
did
just didn't know
tell-
whether those things typically come to our select board agenda before they get signed off on or not.
The last couple of years, it's a standard grant every year, $2,700.
I see.
And
Okay.
he's used it to fund a variety of different emergency management related projects. I did tell Tom that I would like a description of what he intends to use the funds for, so that when you sign the application, you'll be informed as to what it's going to be used for.
Yeah,
But
most of it looked,
technically, he
Go ahead.
should be coming before the full board.
okay. Well, maybe we can, Rick, you can advise him of that at your next meeting. But if it is an annual grant, I'm not too concerned about it, but I did look through it and most of it looked fairly straightforward. I was curious about the $700 in clothing. Do you know what that's all about, Terry?
Oh, see, I didn't even see that he had a list of
Yeah,
items.
there is an itemized list. There's $1,700 in salary in there, so we are generating a stipend for our EMD director through grants, I guess. But anyway,
Well, certainly we could have him in at our next meeting if you'd feel more comfortable. I think it has to be signed. The problem is he's been awarded the money and now they would like contract to be signed.
Oh,
I never
okay.
received a copy of the application when it was submitted. So this was kind of a surprise to me as well.
Okay,
But it's
All right.
always a standard $2,700. And I can ask him for more clarification on how the money is intended to be used.
okay. Good. Well, maybe he can actually use some of it to build some shelving in the bottom of the Cowell gym there so he can consolidate his stuff.
You know, I want to look back because I believe that Chris Myers purchased a storage unit at the high school for storage of emergency management stuff. And if that's the case, those items could be relocated to Mohawk. But I have to do a little digging first.
Okay, great. Well, that would be nice to know if we're having a, for when we have that conversation about space in the Cowell Gym basement. But anyway, so no, thank you for those updates about Tom and his grant. I can come in and sign that. And yeah, and he can check in with us and tell us what his clothing budget is all about. But anyway, so then item C is the FERCog District Local Technical Assistance Priorities. Rick, have you had a chance to look at that?
I have indeed. The breakdown that Terry put together, the chart, I think makes it very easy to look at today. By the way, backing up just a hair, I didn't see an email from Tom about a grant with any detail. Was that in the capital request PDF or?
I think I just got something today and I will forward it to you. I believe Terry was CC'd on it, but I don't know if you were. So I'll send you the copy of that after this meeting.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just a quick clarification. Apparently, Tom had signed the grant contract and the funding agency kicked it back to me saying that he shouldn't be the one signing. It's the select board that signs.
Right.
But that was the first I knew of the grant when I got that email.
Well, Tom has a little bit of process work from my recollection that he has jumped ahead of things a few times. So maybe he can be reminded of that.
Will do.
And good. So what were you saying about DLTA, Rick?
All right, so the chart that we received, actually, I found it quite disappointing that only 2 of our organizations responded with feedback on picking some priorities to help set a direction in this particular piece. You work with what you've got. I think it also, as I read this several times, thought about it, read it the next day over the weekend. I can see why it would perhaps be difficult for them to try and narrow down and pick 3 categories because they are, there's none that jump out and scream Shelburne for me. So that was perhaps the reason we got such a small feedback. But I have to agree, Rick. I was not impressed with the list of the menu of options there. Yeah. I was quite surprised at the priority listed on them as well in one of them. But in any event, I have what I think are 3 that make a lot of sense. And as I understand it, it's our job to look at the 3 top priority proposals from those that submitted, decide if any or all are ones that we would want to support. So starting off with actually the Emergency Management Director's #1 choice, which was public information and warning. I think that's a real shortcoming for us. It comes up all the time. And I would also join him in ranking that for me personally as a #1 priority for the town. My second priority, neither of the 2 that submitted chose, which would be consideration of the regional municipal wage and classification study. It's something the police department brought up to us, Andrew, I'm sure you'll recall, and you pointed out that if we do that, we should do the whole town, and that makes total sense to me. So Terry did look into this with UMass, and the number I believe was an estimated $500 per position. So that's a chunk of change to do some analysis of a comparative wage study. They did.
That's what we would have to pay to do a wage classification study,
Yeah.
even with the
Just-
DLTA?
Well, this was prior to reviewing this DLTA list. I had no idea that this would be listed. I reached out to the UMass Collins Center. Clearly they want to start from ground zero and recreate job descriptions and interview employees. And I told them that we had spent a great deal of money, maybe 7 years ago, creating job descriptions. And, I'd like to cut that part out. But they said, oh, no, it's very much a part of our process. And they gave me an estimate of approximately $500 per position to rank.
And that's why.
But so how does that fit in with if we did it as a DLTA project?
I wouldn't know. I think it would depend on how many towns chose that as a priority and whether the FERCog would work with a group of people using their grant funds to perform a study.
Because I would be more interested in just picking up from where we left off at the last wage and classification study and just saying, can we update that?
Yes, and really what Greg would like to do, I mean, Greg sent me a ton of information today, and Rick, I think it's something that you should probably review with Greg. But he fears that with our current setup, we invest a lot of money in our officers in particular, and it's a market where everybody's trying to steal, to fulfill their spots on the force. So he would like to be able to have some sort of a growth factor so he can show a patrolman, for example, you stick with us, and as you, stay on, and there'll be steps. He'd like to have a low range, a high range, just to give the employees something to aspire to.
Is that something that typically comes out of a wage classification study, or would we have to sort of specify that?
Typically it comes out of a wage study. It's just ours is outdated in that regard. We pay more than the mid-range and high range that was predicted 7 years ago, even though we adjust with cost of living increases.
Mhm.
Well, everybody knows in business, and the town is certainly one, keeping good employees is the challenge. Which is
So
why
Rick, you've got, I just wanted to finish your list. You've got that as number 2. What's number 3 for you?
I also liked the business and industry sector assistance. They had a option within that for direct support to provide support access to small business assistant resources. We've got a nice downtown, and people working hard to put together nice stores to keep locals and visitors served and happy and interested. And as you mentioned last week, I think we lost the Shelburne Falls Area Business Association. There's nobody advocating for them anymore. And I thought, when I looked at all these other items, there wasn't anything came close to me than closer to what I think we as a town could do for real benefit would be to provide some direct access support to the small business owners in our town. So I thought including that as our third, as a choice, but I ranked that as 3 after the other 2. So that was my take.
The only other thing that I saw of people who returned things is the planning board did return theirs with 3 items prioritized. So they have a 1, 2, and 3 of their own. What's
Right.
your thought on that?
Well, their number 2 is my number 1, and actually the emergency management's number 1. So I think that's a no-brainer. Pending what your opinion is. So regional municipal wage and classification being the second for me wasn't on their list.
Yeah,
I was very confused by their number one choice of the planning board, an evacuation assessment, where the emergency management director listed that as number 5, and we only get 3. So I didn't see where that input came from their purview, what their call to order is. There's zoning bylaw development. The one that they checked was that was their third choice, is the zoning bylaw development. And they checked a specific one specific to stormwater management related flood resilient zoning. I don't view that at this point, you know, after everything we learned and did with Irene and since then. Not that it's not an important matter, but the other 3 that I've called to attention, I think should have a higher priority, just in my opinion. And the other zoning bylaw support that they checked was for clean energy, large scale solar facilities, battery storage bylaws, or update the solar bylaws to protect pollinator habitat. We have a solar bylaw that's 10, 12 pages, I mean, and it's fairly new and fresh. So maybe it could use a revisit. I think that makes a great sense for them to pick that as one of the ones they were interested in.
yeah. My guess is that the recent newspaper coverage of the solar and battery issues in Shutesbury and Wendell are probably precipitating that
Yep.
desire to have another look at the solar bylaw.
Battery storage, I think, is new, right?
Yeah,
I don't recall battery storage being in our bylaws,
right. No, that's a fairly recent
right?
trend in the.
And I could support that. I could support that for sure.
Yeah.
What are your?
Well, a couple of thoughts. I mean, one, I like I'm fine with the emergency notification if both of them think that's an important thing to do. Not quite sure what we're going to get out of it, but I'm happy to see where that goes. Similarly, if you all think that we need an update on wage classification, I think that's an important priority. We should do that. I'm a little bit skeptical of the business assistance, just because, as you say, without somebody on the ground directing that and actually generating interest from local businesses, I'm not sure what we're going to get out of it, and whether the FERCog has internal capacity to really provide meaningful assistance to businesses other than doing kind of surveys and studies and things like that. So that's really my question is can we get something useful if we do that? And so do you think we can? Or Terry, do you know what
just
sort
wanted
of
to mention-
services are offered in that bucket?
I don't, but we're in the midst of a 4-town grant-funded project with the hopes that we'll come out of it with a comprehensive plan for the economic development of the downtown village. So I feel like in some ways that would be somewhat redundant.
Yeah, I tend to agree, Rick, in that I'd like to see what comes out of that, and then if we can, there's talk there and in some other quarters about figuring out how we can cobble together a part-time staff person. The latest sort of concept is somebody who might be sort of a shared person between a business liaison working with the West County Arts and Culture Group, and maybe even with the Memorial Hall Association. If we can somehow scrape together a part-time person, I think we have a much better shot at really figuring out what it is that the businesses want help with and how to help them, more effectively than just getting the FERCog in by themselves, I don't think results in a lot of meaningful technical assistance to businesses unless they're stepping forward and saying, we want this, that, and the other thing, that's the work that I think needs to be done first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was unaware of the 4-town project, must have been initiated
Prior.
before my time. So that's great news. And I would put mine on the back burner for sure immediately with that knowledge. And the potential for some new position, even if it's part-time, to focus on us. This COG form that we got is so bare bones, it kind of just gives you a snippet. In fact, I read the whole line about the support. Well, what does that encompass? So this is basically them asking all the towns to rank it. And if in the top 3 of the highest ranking of all the towns who respond, that's one of them, they'll dig in and see what they can do for us. So it's not like they listed these things that they can provide for small businesses. So it's kind of a testing the waters to see which ones they're going to focus on, because they're certainly not going to focus on them all. So
Yeah.
I'd be happy with the 3 you mentioned: the public information and warning, the regional municipal wage and classification study. Again, we don't know what that means. I mean, unless all the other towns are interested in it, it may not pop up. And if it does, we'll see what they can come up with and see if it makes sense for us to participate at whatever cost it may be that they come up with for the town. And the zoning bylaw development, I would support that completely as one of the 3.
Yeah, I'd be happy to support that list myself. The one other one that I'm interested in, and I see Jeff Bettner is here, so I can ask him this question. I had sort of floated to the Energy Committee the idea, maybe this year, maybe next year, of doing more of a solar study that would help us figure out what is our potential for building solar facilities, beyond the one that we're doing now on the pole barn, that would really help the town move toward the goal of net zero. And the other half of that would be doing a kind of both an inventory of what is our current electric demand and what is our projected electric demand as we further electrify the town in terms of heat pump conversions, maybe even down the road thinking about electric police cars, or whatever. And what does that draw amount to in terms of what kind of solar energy we would need to meet that. So I noticed that just this week that the town of Montague's Energy Committee put together just that kind of plan, and included a survey of the community to get public input on it, and I was very impressed. And so I'm just curious, Jeff, if the Energy Committee has talked at all about that.
Tom Johnson has certainly talked about it, and we've gathered a few other reports. I've got one from Vermont too that talks about how they went about doing it, and I think it's a great idea on both. Actually, we really need an overview of just the whole, and that's actually the Finance Committee has been asking for that too, is like just what's our priorities for the town for all the stuff that we're doing with the Energy Committee, and how do lights fit into that whole picture as well. So it's all kind of interrelated. But I think it's a great idea to kind of analyze both. And I think Tom has actually started on that, and he's certainly been thinking about the solar end, but we need to do it kind of more formally and just kind of set out a plan. But I think that's a great idea.
Well, I didn't see a place to plug that into the DLTA this year, but I'm just floating it as a maybe next year thing for DLT, or if not that, for maybe finding some other funding source that might support that, or maybe getting some help from the UMass, various people who provide support to municipalities, the building extension group or River Strong's group or whatever. But anyway, so I put that
Yeah.
back in your hopper, Jeff, to
Okay.
see if we can do that. But in the meantime, Rick, do you want to move that on those 3 projects?
Terry had her hand up a moment ago, I
Oh,
think.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Terry.
That's okay. I just wanted to mention, I think Trisha had applied for a meta grant that was going to evaluate both the Cowell Gym roof and Memorial Hall roof for solar, if I'm not mistaken. We
Yeah.
haven't
Okay.
heard on that grant yet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. No, that's certainly one piece of what I'm describing, but I was hoping for, an even larger assessment than that, but those would certainly be useful pieces of information to go into that.
So
Rick, do you want to go ahead?
in that case, I will make a motion that we respond to this survey, which is due in 2 days, and that Terry can complete it with the town's top 3 choices. They asked us to put them in order, Andrew. Are you comfortable with, so cancel my motion. Let me ask another question. Are you comfortable with that order?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so then I would move that Terry respond to this COG survey with our top 3 choices being public information and warning. Second, municipal wage and classification study. And third, zoning bylaw development.
Great, I'll second that. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Rick?
Aye.
Andrew's aye, and the motion carries. And we are on to any other business. Anybody have any other business? Hearing none, our next meeting is February 12th. Do we have any correspondence?
No.
No. And do we have any public comment? I see Jeff here. Did you want to say something, Jeff?
No, I'm just listening in. I think those are excellent suggestions on the rankings. And I really appreciate Rick throwing in the business stuff, because I really think we do need to have a business association of some sort, and it would be really good to get that fired back up. But no, I'll take some of this to the next energy meeting and see what we can do on doing more planning, because I think it's on the back burner for all of us, and we've been kind of pulling together pieces. It was a big help to get the information from Terry and John Walsh when they did the Green Communities grant, because it kind of ranked all the buildings as where they're at, and so we can actually we have that nice big backup view. And so we've been kind of looking at that in the picture of also with so many dams and nearby and a lot of electric power coming here, we're actually kind of a net producer of energy even now. We're producing like 11 megawatts from the 4 dams, and that's hourly. So that's the equivalent of 6,600 houses. So powering it. So really, we shouldn't look at ourselves as being, we're all the stuff that we're producing is actually really just helping keep that power going to elsewhere. So it's actually really great that we can do both, and feels good about it. So yeah. So
Good.
It's a good point.
Thanks, Jeff. Good. Well, if we have no other business and no other comments, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And I will second. All in favor, Rick?
Aye.
Andrew is aye, and we are adjourned.
thanks,
All right.
guys.
Thank you.
See you
Thanks,
soon.
everybody.
Yeah.
Great